Hi, welcome to I Woke Up Like This. I'm your host, Dr. Claudia Thompson, and today we are talking about how to connect with our spirit guides. One of my main jobs as a quantum activator is to facilitate the process that activates you into the abilities allowing you to communicate with your guides. One of the reasons why this is really a main area for me is because a big part of my job is to help you connect with your guides, communicate with your guides. Ultimately, while I can provide messages, while I can convey the information, the goal is to get you to a place where you can commune with your guides on your own because each and every one of you has abilities to connect. You have the biological systems in place that allow you to connect. And this is a matter of practicing. This is a matter of leaning into those abilities, learning to trust those abilities, and awakening yourself up to the multidimensional, infinite being that you actually are. So, before I get into how we actually do that, I think it's really important that we talk about what guides are. So, a lot of times, especially on my various social media channels, I get a lot of DMs asking who my guides are. Who are these souls? Who are these individuals that convey these messages that touch so many of you? And so today we're going to get into that a little bit. I'm going to share with you who some of my guides are, how I work with them, and how in doing that, they have taught me how to help you connect as well. Because while I have my team, you have a team as well. These teams are made up of past loved ones, ancestors, multidimensional beings, angels, religious figures, and your soul family that is existing in another time, place, space, realm, dimension that has been tasked with the job of helping you navigate this realm. And it's really important to understand that as we move forward, these guides have always been there. They have always been in your entire life, helping you, guiding you. It's just a matter of how connected you are and how clear the communication is. And part of the experience of this earth realm is the fact that when you came here, you forgot you had all of these abilities. You forgot you had this team on the other side helping you. And part of your job is to awaken and to remember that you have these capabilities, to lean into them, to develop the faith and trust in them, and really turn yourself back on to the capabilities that have been within you the entire time. Another key component of learning to communicate with guides is also learning to communicate with your higher self, because your higher self can be a monumental guide on your journey. So, a lot of times when we do healing work, we have to go into places and spaces where we have had trauma, where we have had incidences from our past and our lives that we need to heal. So, a lot of times when we do this healing work, our present version of ourself is going back to help a younger version, a previous version of ourselves in this lifetime. And just as you do that work, your higher self is doing that work for you now. So your higher self has a lot of capacity to help heal you and help you move along this journey of awakening. And this is a process of building trust, of building the communication structure that you need in order to move forward in a way that feels good to you, that feels like you're loved, that feels like you're supported. Before we get into the exact how of how we communicate with our guides, it's really important that there is an acknowledgement that they are there, that you give them permission to communicate with you. When we are in this particular realm on this planet, we have free will. And when you have free will, you have to acknowledge your helpers. You have to ask them to help you. What that is one of the biggest first steps you can do is acknowledging that they are there, that they're willing to help you, and they will provide you signs and synchronicities to show you that they are hearing you, that they are available. That was one of the key components of my awakening, was when I decided to ask for help. When I decided to ask for help from the unseen forces that I believed were there to help me. I wasn't really sure how that was going to look. I wasn't really sure how the communication would go. And I remember this was such a key part of my journey, of my healing and my awakening journey, was when I took a trip to New York City. And that particular trip was a work trip. And it was one of the few times during my marriage that I had space away from my ex-husband. And that particular time, I knew, I could feel in my soul that it was a, you needed to break free, or you were going to end up stuck in a very bad position. And I was in a park, I think it was in Brooklyn, and I was wandering around. I had had some time to myself. And so I was wandering around and I was internally debating on whether I was going to leave or whether I was going to stay. And I felt really, really unsettled about the whole thing, because obviously it was a person I had committed my life to, and that was not something that I was going to make a decision lightly, even though the circumstances were not good. And from the outside looking in, it was an obvious choice. But to me, it was not an obvious choice at that time. And I remember being in the park, and I remember looking up towards the sky, and I remember having that moment where I said, hey, if you're there, if you are there and you are willing to help me, show me what I am supposed to do. Give me a clear sign on what I am supposed to do and how I'm supposed to move forward. And not even 5 or 6 hours later, I got the signs that I asked for. They made things abundantly clear that I could not stay in that relationship and that I needed to move forward. Now, there was a lot of time and space in between that moment and me making a concerted effort to fully communicate with my guides, have really open communication where there are sentences involved and clear messages, not just for me, but for others. But that was really the first step in the process, which was acknowledging that they are there asking for help. You have to allow them into your space so that they can assist you. They've been there the whole time, and they love you, and they want to see you succeed, and they want to see you live a life that is full of happiness and joy, and they want to help you get through the lessons that you set up to learn, and they want to help you transmute the energy of lower vibrational emotions into happiness and love. And they want you to feel that unconditional love that Source is always there to provide you with. So the first step is acknowledging them. And while signs and synchronicities are super helpful, I see them as high fives from the universe. They're letting you know that you're moving in the right direction, that you are following the inner guidance that is always with you. They give you a thumbs up on your intuitive capabilities and things like that. There is a deeper way to connect. It's highly effective. And it's highly effective because you have the biology required to do this. And if you're sitting at home and you're like, Claudia, what are you talking about? What do you mean I have the biology to do this? So the physical body that you are in has a receiver system built in place that you can essentially turn on. I see this as a radio and an adjustment of the radio station. So, in order to listen to a song on the radio, you would have to turn that radio on first. then you would have to tune it to the station that feels good to you, that brings you joy, that gives you the information that you need, that sets the tone for the information that you receive. And your body has the ability to do this as well. So, the way that we turn this system on is through meditation. And it's a very particular type of meditation that activates you through this process. This is why you could be using meditation apps, why you could be doing, 15, 20-minute meditations and still feel disconnected from your guides, because there's a very specific activation process that has to occur in order to turn that system on. So all meditation is not created equal in this particular arena. If you want to turn on your abilities to communicate with the unseen helpers that you have to go through this activation process. Now, the thing with this activation process is that it does matter who is leading you through these meditations. Reason being is when you activate this particular system, depending on who's guiding you through that, depends on which doorway, so to speak, you walk through. So let's say we have a hallway and it has a lot of different doors in this hallway. There's doors on each side of this hallway, back to back to back to back. And all of those doors are a particular guide that allows you into this space, that created the doorway that you get to walk through. And the vibrational resonance, the frequency, the emotional place the individual that created the doorway resides in will set the tone for your experience. So, when it comes to connecting with guides and activating this system, you want to make sure that you're working with somebody who is sitting in a higher vibrational frequency. They've done the work to go through their healing process. They have really worked to bring the pieces of themselves that were sitting in the darkness, that was sitting in the shadow, and they bring that into themselves and they heal that piece. Are they perfect individuals? No, because nobody is perfect. But you really do need somebody that has taken the time and the effort and done the hard work of looking at themselves, looking at their limiting beliefs, looking at their ego, and healing those pieces that drive human behavior from a place that sits in like lower vibrational emotions, things that are competitive, things that reside in fear, things that bring forth an experience that could be traumatic. So you want an individual who has worked through those things. I myself walked through a couple of different doorways from individuals that, hadn't worked through fear narratives and things like that. And that made my experience more fearful. And so when I tell you that this is an important piece, it is because I learned through trial and error and through the fire, basically. And so that's why that piece is really, really important. It's really, really important. So you have a hallway, you have all of these doors. And so individuals that activate through these places and spaces, where they currently are matters. So when you're choosing someone to lead you through, whether that be me or somebody else, I think it's really important that you sit on that decision and you feel through your intuitive guidance, even if you don't have your abilities turned all the way on, you're going to have a gut feeling about somebody. You're going to have a gut feeling if somebody should lead you to the next level of your journey. And that is up to you to determine who resonates with you. Do they move from a place of unconditional love? Do you get good feelings when they give you information, or are you skeptical? Are you really unsure? Do you feel like that might not be the place for you to work through this stuff? It really depends on the individual, and you have to make that call. And I know for me, I ignored a lot of those signals and moved through in a way that I had to learn those lessons. But again, I help guide people through these places. So it was very important for me to learn those lessons and to learn what's important in this process as you move through, because I have taken a lot of people through this journey now at this point, and I want to make sure that you have an experience that is supported, an experience that is led from a place of unconditional love. So make sure that you don't walk through a doorway that doesn't resonate with you, that gives you some feelings of either fear or anxiety. You want to move away from those. So not all meditations will activate you through this. Not all meditations will walk you down a hallway with a bunch of doorways, of which then you need to decide which one you're going to walk through. This is only for meditations that activate you into communication with guides and into the quantum space. And these particular meditations have a very specific way of doing these things. So it's a 3-step process. The first step is activating the pineal gland. The second step is balancing out your energy centers or chakras. And the third step is bringing your heart and your brain into coherence. And this 3-step process is what activates you into that strong communication with your guides. Now, the first step, activating the pineal gland, this is where your biological systems come into place, because the pineal gland is located at the base of your head, right where your spinal column meets your brain cavity. So this particular area is where your cerebral spinal fluid dumps into your brain and cleanses it twice a day. So for those of you that aren't familiar, you have cerebral spinal fluid. You have fluid in your spinal column that runs from the base of your spine by your tailbone all the way up to your brain. And every day, 2 times, that fluid will move up into the brain and back down, and up into the brain and back down. And what it does is it cleanses the brain. It takes away any sort of metabolites or things that need to be removed from the system. It cleanses the brain. It moisturizes the brain. It makes sure that you have proper electric conductivity through your brain each and every day. And this happens without any thought by you at all. It just does it. Now, that pineal gland is right at that opening, and that particular gland, the type of tissue that it's made of, allows for crystallization. And the thing about crystallized tissue is that if you put a mechanical pressure on it, so if you force pressure on it, it will create a piezoelectric magnetic field. And so what that is your own electromagnetic field. The pineal gland, in regards to this electromagnetic field, is basically like your power system. You are turning on your radio. And so when you turn on that radio, you are able to then adjust the station, but you have to turn it on first. And there is a specific mechanism of breath work that allows you to activate this system. The other really cool part about the pineal gland is that it is the regulator of melatonin and serotonin. And When you change a melatonin molecule ever so slightly, you actually end up with DMT, which is dimethyltryptamine. You end up with DMT, which is a molecule that is a psychedelic molecule. That particular molecule you can ingest um, from outside of you by taking it as a drug, but you actually produce this molecule all by yourself. And so this breath work activates that gland. It allows you to produce more of that molecule, which allows you to slip through the um, inner workings of the 3D matrix that we live in. And so you're not hallucinating, you are allowing more information that you normally have access to. And so some of the interesting things about these molecules is that they allow you to have access to information that you don't normally have access to. So it opens up your abilities, it opens up your senses to allow you to see and feel more than you normally do. So the first step of this meditation process that will allow you to connect with your guides is activating this gland. It's turning it on. The next step is balancing out your energy centers. So energy centers or chakras are specific points in your body where energy is located, where there are access points. These are measurable by certain equipment. And so a lot of times what you have is you have an individual who has not done this balancing, and your energy centers should be in alignment with your spine. And when they aren't, they are spaced out in different places and spaces around the body. They can be misshapen, they can be blocked. So a lot of times when people go to energy workers or people who do Reiki, a lot of times what they're doing is they are cleaning up those energy centers. But the thing is that that temporary fix is like a band-aid. You're putting a band-aid over a wound. You need to actually learn to maintain those energy centers on your own. And so the second part of the process is balancing out those energy centers so that they are in alignment. Because the first step is you turning on your radio. The second step is honing in the radio station that you want to pay attention to. And you do this tuning by balancing those energy centers. So you turn on, you balance. The third step is bringing your brain and your heart into coherence. So both of these organs are very energetic, and it's really important that they beat at the same time. The more coherence you have, the more they are working in unison, the greater ability you have to expand your capacity to bring in this information from this quantum space. That balancing also really assists in being able to communicate with your higher self, allowing that higher self to come in and help you heal and work through the things that you're working through in this phase of your journey. So if you want to develop really good communication with your guides, you have to do this 3-step process. You have to. It is the one thing that has allowed all of my clients to expand their capacity to be able to communicate with their guides. It is the process that allowed me to turn on my abilities to communicate with my guides. And this is really the key to allow you to gain access to capabilities that have been dormant inside of you the entire time. Now, a lot of people are like, okay, Claudia, where can I get these? I have a 3-part series, the Awakening series, that does just this. It's 3 meditations. One activates the pineal gland, one does the energy balancing, and one is brain and heart coherence. And this is very accessible. But what I do know is that you have to make time to do these things. You have to commit the time, you have to commit the effort. So just like going to the gym and developing new muscles, you have to develop new muscles with this process. You have to be patient, and you have to give it a bit of time with commitment to the process in order to open up these capabilities. Everybody is different. But the people that I work with that are committed to meditating every day, or at least almost every day, they may take a day or two off a week, they are getting communication with their guides in weeks' time. Because again, once you turn on your radio, you're going to start to receive more information. But you have to do the work to turn on the radio, and then you have to do the work to tune into the appropriate station. And you absolutely want to connect with your higher self so that you're moving from an intuitive place that allows you to discern the messages that you start to receive, that you are moving from a place that is for your highest good and for the highest good of all. This is something that is really accessible. This is something that everyone can do. This is something that you have the capability to do. You just haven't found the appropriate process to open the door, so to speak, for you into this realm. Activating this process will allow you to gain access to places and spaces that allow you to connect with your guides, but it also allows you to rewire your limiting beliefs. It allows you to develop a true understanding of unconditional self-love. It creates the places and spaces where you can be more calm, even amidst a lot of chaos. And it's really, really important um, for as many people as possible to turn on these capabilities and start to use them. Because when you do that, you get yourself from places and spaces that are of lower emotions, of places that where you are hurting, places that you are traumatized. And with this guidance, with this communication, you are able to navigate through that. You are able to heal from those things. And when you heal from those things, that is effectively you transmuting, you changing one energy into another. And that has collective implications. So there are studies that show that when groups of meditators meditate consistently in cities, there are reduced crime rates, there are lower rates of depression, anxiety, all of these things. And when you do the work to connect, when you do the work to heal, because connecting is an act of healing, because it is an act of remembering who you are, the infiniteness that you are, how supported you are by these beings and the place where we all came from. You are supported and you are loved. And gaining access to that connection allows you to move through this world in a way that is heart-centered, in a way that moves from a healed place instead of a hurt place. So collectively, we need as many people doing this as possible. So if you're struggling to connect with your guides, the first step is acknowledging them. It's acknowledging that they're there. It's starting to ask for help. It's starting to ask for signs and synchronicities of the support that you have. The next step in that is turning on that full communication. So turning on the radio, tuning the station, and then bringing your heart and your brain into coherence so that you can move through this realm in a way that makes you feel supported, loved, and cared for. You've got this. Keep going.